Chapter 4 Communications. The oral communications from the Black man are a topic of concerned study, mostly involving attempts to decipher exactly what it is he is trying to say and what is his point in saying it. Complicating this issue are charges from his woman that he is not open enough about his feelings, thoughts, and ideas. Many of them, even those who are married, rarely venture out verbally to express themselves, and some hardly talk at all. And if they do talk, they confine their comments to detached external issues unrelated to his personal feelings or conclusions. When they do attempt to make a communicative contribution or explain how they interpret a particular subject, they are met with criticism or rejection. This is based on some of their illusionary, never will happen solutions and their proclivity to hesitate or take the long way around to arrive at a goal. It is very difficult to convince them that one of their idealistic postures is erroneous. They will hold fast to a losing position in a debate and refuse to concede if it means admitting they are wrong. They complain they are tired of their women doing all the talking, trying to tell them what to do, and being so opinionated on issues they believe only pertain to them. It astounds them how fast women think or take action, and they are baffled when they try to explain something that is so crystal clear to them but appears to confuse their listeners. It is obvious that Black men speak and interpret the language and deduce the crux of an issue in an entirely different way than their woman and nearly everyone else. This difference of approach and system of delayed consideration often prevents the Black man from getting his ideas across to others. However, this does not necessarily mean that they are wrong, just that because of how he says it, nobody's interested in listening. Methods of communication and use of the language has evolved in one way for Black women and another way for Black men. For example, it is possible that many of the misunderstandings between couples occur because they are speaking two different dialects. Each gender has pre established certain definitions based on their personal feelings and priorities. They are rarely adjustable between intimate parties. Feminine and masculine perceptions determine what a word means, as long as each sex can insist on devising their own definitions of the language. Black men and Black women will continue to misinterpret each other and become combative when trying to hold a sane conversation. Set definitions must be agreed upon for general topics that routinely must be discussed in a relationship. These definitions become the rules of the discussion, and each party must communicate within the framework of the wording, which both speakers understand. Complicated. Words, breath sounds, and musical tones are all ways to communicate to elicit a response from another person. Sound waves, even English, stimulate the nervous system to react if the brain has been trained to understand the meaning of the sounds. European musicians learned how to arrange musical notes and tones to stimulate a chill which seems to pass over the body when the music is heard or sang. This chill bump feeling is experienced by the Black man when he sings or hears the national anthem or America the Beautiful, both patriotic songs. The Black man thinks that the chill he experiences, meaning that the words and the music have special spiritual meaning, and thus the chill feeling fills him with great emotions, which he believes is his loyalty. Many regular words have private meanings to him, and he is insulted easily. When called upon, they have a ready list of examples about how unfairly they are dealt with in every category of their lives. They demand the right to say anything about any topic they choose and expound determinedly on numerous subjects in which they believe their opinions are right. They think everybody else is wrong as hell. Communication is best facilitated by the use of oral sounds. Words are the vehicles that transport ideas derived from a particular culture, basically understood by those who speak it. The previously mentioned nonverbal communications also include body language. The experts say that when a person talks, only 7% of what they say is verbal, 23% is conveyed by body language, 35% by facial expression, and 35% tone of voice. If this is true, then all kinds of messages are being sent between black men and black women, mixed messages and fleeting thoughts. English is not considered a complete language anyway. It was meshed out of a blend of words from the British, the Italians, the Swedes, the Germans, the Irish, the Jews, the Dutch, the French, and the Portuguese. More recently, Spanish and Asian words have been included. No part of the Black man's language from Africa are included in any translation of the mother tongue English. This puts the Black man at another disadvantage due to the total elimination of his ancestral forms of communication. Scholars report that since 1900, new English words have been added at a rate of 500 to 1,000 per year. Dictionary editors say that of 300,000 words, the meanings, definitions of over 200,000 of them have been revised, changed in the past 20 years. The American dialect is not rooted in the Black man's experience. He develops his own slang language to communicate with his own kind. English was difficult for him to learn, so that's how he developed words like this, that, twas, massa, twernit, ain't, seent, duh, yes'm, etc. Out of his frustration, he uses words or phrases designated as foul or curse words. The Japanese, Malayans, Polynesians, and American Indians do not have curse words in their languages. The Romans had about 800 dirty words. American English has 20, plus over 1,000 terms for sexual intercourse. Additionally, the English language contains sounds that do not represent actual words, but are defined as having definite meanings. These sounds are included as part of the language. Examples are 1, uh huh, 2, uh oh, 3, psst, 4, hmm, 5, tsk, 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 6, hmm, 7, huh, 8, ooh wee, 9, ah, 10, mm. All of the above lip sounds have valuable meanings in any conversation. They express every emotion from agreement to disdain. These sounds are indigenous only to Americans. Nevertheless, they make up a great part of the vocabulary used to give or receive information. The black man will periodically make up words, saying, or slogans to aid his expression. Some of the slang words the black man has made up to transmit his own ideas are hip, jive, dig, hully gully, right on, done deal, fit into, nigger please, the crib, lay dead, cool, fly, dissing, all that, rip off, and others. Obviously, this list represents only a hint at the amount or kinds of words which sometimes are only used or understood in certain cities or even neighborhoods. Trying to talk in America is not an easy task, especially for Black men. When the Black man does communicate, what does he say? Well, his women respond that one of the ways he is noted for communicating is by lying. They say he is routinely subject to lie about the following things: 1, how much money he makes; 2, how well he can play or played a sport, basketball, football, etc. 3, what his position or job is; 4, how much they paid for something; 5, how many women they got; 6, their marital status; 7, about how many children they have; 8, about how they get along with their wife or woman; 9, how much power they wield in their house; 10, how fast their car can go; 11, their physical abilities; 12, about what they did in the war; 13, how they functioned in a physical fight; 14, how many times they can climax in one night; 15, how many women they quit; 16, things women have done to or for them; 17, how much money they have; 18, how they got somebody told; 19, what a woman did to them in bed; 20, where they are going when leaving the house; 21, where they just came from. 22, their skills. 23, why they broke up with their wife or lady friend. 24, about their childhood. 25, about how much their clothes cost. 26, about who he's related to. 27, what he spent his money on. 28, about how much money he had to drink. 29, about completing a task or chore. 30, about being broke. And, as suspected, the list goes on and on. His lies are connected some way to his trying to earn respect, keep the peace, gain recognition, or admiration. He says he gets in more trouble with the truth than he does with a lie. So he has adjusted his life to include a repugnance for absolute truth. His infamy as a habitual liar with his woman has garnered him a reputation of having diabolic intent to defraud. His women say that lying is apparently a singular black male phenomenon. He mainly lies to get out of trouble and to avoid punishment or disapproval. They shudder at the thought of their women catching them in a lie. They feel completely defenseless when they get busted. The reason for telling so many lies is to avoid the consequences of being honest. Then his guilt causes him to worry. Worry gives him anxiety, and anxiety leads to weariness. Thus, he is tired. Lying is a negative defensive habit that creates distrust and suspicion in his relationships. Sometimes he is able to joke himself out of getting caught in a lie, or he manages to explain it off convincingly or resort to more serious tactics depending on the seriousness of the issue, and he will cry, real tears. Whenever he is caught in a lie, he knows he has two emotions going for him. One, the unwavering desire his woman has to believe and trust him, and two, a man crying brings out the maternal instincts of a female, and she is more apt to forgive him. The crying tactic is not really that unconscionable if one considers that to the black man with rascal tendencies to lie, tears fall within the sphere of being a handy, distracting survival tool. Many times his woman listens to his weak explanations until he finally stumbles on one she can halfway settle with. Whether his use of lies is an innate defense mechanism or a wicked character flaw cannot easily be determined because most of the time his woman knows when he is lying anyway. The black man has a history of being daring, taking risks, and testing himself in many areas of endeavor. It could be that lying provides him with a warped kind of challenge that requires him to be quick on his feet, always ready to meet the moment and wiggle out of conflict based on his own ingenuity. And when he gets away with a gigantic lie, he can anoint himself the winner. Albeit, this is a strange way to achieve self worth, esteem, or confidence. Taking responsibility to defend the truth is more emotionally difficult and takes a much longer time to settle. Until he works out his lying problem, his communication voids will persist. Lying has seriously damaged the credibility of the black man. So, how does he react to the truth? He claims that his woman can't handle truth very well, but the black man does not assimilate with it in any better than she does. He thinks that he has never received any rewards or satisfaction for telling the truth from his parents, friends, or his mate. So he figuratively pats himself on the back every time he outwits an opponent with a masterful, superior lie. There are many truths that he would not acknowledge about himself, truths which are verifiable according to his original nature, but have become distorted and perverted. Some of the daily issues he refuses to recognize as truth are: 1, he will not admit that black women should dress more modestly because that position requires him to change his immoral ideas and adulterous reactions to her nudity. 2, he won't admit that he has sacrificed the black child's life by not fulfilling his responsibility as father. 3, he can't agree with the self help platform because it necessitates his becoming qualified to be independent using his own steam. 4, he can't admit that the civil rights movement failed because it's easier to have blind faith in a system than to abandon it. 5, he can't acknowledge that black boys need to be in a separate school to address their special needs because he will have to take a more active role in their educational process. 6, He won't admit that he could exert more control over the drug influx in his neighborhood because it would demand he take action to remove the problem. 7. He can't agree that his woman rules him or that he is afraid of her because he prefers using her misbehavior as an excuse to do the negative things he himself does. 8. He won't say that he dislikes seeing black women with white men because it's an unpopular stand and can get him expelled from certain circles. 9. He doesn't admit that he really does want to be in charge of his wife and family because he is afraid of failure and the blame it entails. 10. He can't admit that the real reason he's angry with the Asians who buy and operate businesses in his own neighborhood is simply because he doesn't know how to operate a business himself. 11. He won't admit that he spends too much money outside the African American community because he is so enthralled with the material goodies produced by the Europeans and the Japanese. 12. He can't accept the fact that white folks are never going to give him reparations or apologize to him for how badly he has been treated after slavery because he feels like a chump. 13. He won't acknowledge that he is never really comfortable around whites as he is with his own kind because then he has to admit that the two races actually are different. 14. He can't admit that while he publicly claims to admire Nelson Mandela or Malcolm X, that he's too scared to make moral judgments and stand up for what he believes in like they did. 15. He certainly can't admit that he would like to have two women because he has been convinced that it's wrong and unjustifiable. 16. He can't admit that it's wrong for black men to be homosexuals because he doesn't want to offend anyone or force his values on others. Plus, he's not sure on what basis he thinks it's wrong. 17. He can't announce his feelings of helplessness because he thinks that he must always impress others of his massive strength, even when there's no proof that it even exists. 18. He can't admit he can't admit that he doesn't know how to express his black culture other than wearing African clothes or symbols. 19. He can't admit that he has wasted a lot of time believing in and chasing rainbow colored dreams that never materialize. 20. And finally, he can't admit that he no longer has any confidence in the American political system as a solutional base for his problems because it would require him to develop independent strategies to reach his own goal. If he decided that any of the above statements were true, he would immediately start to function differently and go to work to implement some potential for real change for his grandchildren. Carrying around lies in his head is a heavy burden and makes him always keep alert to avoid situations that might show him up as a hypocrite. Another way he gets out of being confronted with his lies is to drop out of sight for a while, just disappear completely until he thinks its importance has blown over. He is good at ducking the truth because it condemns him and exposes his masquerade of being honest. He lives in a perpetual state of fear of being attacked. Exactly what is he afraid of? He is afraid someone might kill him, take something from him, steal his car, take his woman, blow his credit. He's scared of being found out, of losing respect, of moving too fast, of forgetting something, of dropping dead from the pressure of having people depend on him, or of getting caught. He is afraid that he will be arrested for something. He is afraid of losing his job, and he is afraid that things are getting progressively worse. His fears cause him to hesitate. He complains too much instead of acting. What does the black man do with his frustration and pent up rage or anger? Sociologists say that familial deprivation and lack of cultural contact leads an individual to instinctive hostility and aggression as a byproduct of these vacancies in their development. Much of the black man's anger is dammed up inside of him. His inability to understand or modulate processes in Western civilization and the intimidation of racism has led him to distrust and fear, which is the basis for his anger. It is now flowing in his veins as a conditional reflex driven by every genetic drop of DNA in his body. He is outraged. His ego has been violated. Many of his hostile reactions to social conflict result from past small failures in varied situations. He often turns his anger on those closest to him. The overbearing contact of inner city or project dwelling black males stuffed into cramped quarters brings about fatigue and impatience. They have been trained to channel their anger into healthy, nonviolent outlets. The only harmless activity he knows of to avert some of his aggression is through sports. This no longer works as many black men wind up killing or injuring each other over sport games. While they claim the threat to their survival are external to their own communities, in many cases, this is where they express their disappointment and rage. When mammals of the same species become alarmed when danger is near, they press together for safety. But because black men have eliminated all ties that bound them together, they turn on each other. Animals show their beastly unselfishness when it comes to the good or preservation of the community. Black males spend a lot of time plotting and planning how to kill or hurt one another. So when claims are made that black men act like animals, they do not, because animals show more love and respect for each other than black men do. Animals have unity. They all live the same way, eat the same food, maintain the same breeding techniques, and care for and train their young. The black man communicates his aggression, sometimes randomly, on innocent victims as a sort of death wish. Every mammal resorts to self defense when cornered with no way to escape. This is what the black man experiences every time he fails at trying to better himself, provide for his family, or get something, and is blocked from doing so by abject racism or rules made up by people he has no control over, or when he is disqualified based on a trick or legality he wasn't told about. He does not know how to resolve these conflicts and maintain his manhood. Anger and conflict are said to be two different things. Conflict is the problem, and anger is the reaction to it. So he implodes for as long as he can, and then he explodes out of desperation. His lack of knowledge puts him at a constant disadvantage. The black man's hostility against other black men is more clearly understood when one realizes that the urge to fight is quicker to be expressed with familiar people in familiar places. The middle of a black man's territory is the most likely battleground for a fist war. Because of the psychological advantage of his own turf, the home court, the further he travels away from home, the less likely he is to voluntarily go on the warpath. This also explains why he raises the most hell in his own home and charges so hard in his own backyard. All of his pent up, misdirected anger validates the stats claiming he has a 5 to 7 times greater chance of being murdered than a white male. Out of every 1,000 white males, about 11 will die involuntarily. Out of the same number, over 110 black men will die of violence, usually at the hands of another black male. Warning them about their likely endangerment doesn't provoke the desired reaction because they have no value for life. The life they know about is filled with disappointment and powerlessness. He's living in someone else's house and is forced to obey the house rules and restrictions because he has nowhere else to go. There have always been and will continue to be black men who claim they are so fed up with the injustices done against blacks that they resort to violence and say they want to wage physical war with America. These black men are the biggest fools of them all. Gun studies say there are more than 200 million firearms in the USA. The bulk of these are owned, assembled, and distributed by white males. Let's consider the basic requirements for any nation to wage war on another government. Certain institutions have to be in place, especially to pass the first lick. The minimal needs are one, a military budget, two, vehicular mobility, three, material suppliers, four, high tech weapons, trained soldiers, five, trained soldiers, six, food and medical care, seven, a communication system, eight, supportive allies. The following are the black man's status regarding the above. Number one, budget. Most black men have a difficult time pulling together their rent budget. They do not own a bank and are not known to pool their dollars for major purchases because they do not trust each other with money. Wars cost money, and black men will never be able to beg enough donations to finance such an extreme, destined to fail, naive idea. Number two, mobility. Cadillacs, Benzes, BMWs, or vans are of no value in a war zone, nor can they take the place of a tank. Blacks own no airline, have no helicopters, and few trained pilots would jeopardize their positions at major airlines to fly higher planes for the black man's war against America. Guerrilla warfare on concrete will be difficult. Number three, supplies. Only a few black men qualify as manufacturers in their businesses. They do not have a central warehouse to order ammo, equipment, clothing, helmets, shields, or any of the incidental items needed in a war. Neither do they have offshore contacts to have stock drop shipped in. Number four, weapons. Black men do not have, nor ever will be allowed to have, enough firearms or contracts to stockpile the kinds of weaponry and explosive necessary to pull off a military coup against the American government. A few 22s and 38s, shotguns, and several automatic weapons are not sufficient to attack the most powerful warring nation on the globe. Number five, soldiers. Black men have never put had ne- Black men have never had but two organizations that trained them for military competence, and they are no longer in existence. And when they were the majority of black men disagreed with their theories about preparing themselves for self defense. They have no sane trained generals or necessary personnel, plus, they will never be able to convince black men in any sizable numbers to voluntarily commit suicide for a cause. Number six, food and medicine. Black men do not have a hospital controlled by them to take in their injured and wounded. They do not have access to volume prescription medications either. Blacks get all their food stuff from European producers who are stocked by European farmers. The black man buys all his food at a supermarket or fast food chain. A people who cannot even feed themselves independently have no business ever considered going to war with the nation providing them with food, clothing, and shelter. The USA could win the war by simply starving them to death and blocking the doors of KFC. Number seven, communications. Black men use home telephones, car phones, and phone booths to contact each other, and most are operated and owned by AT&T. Most black men do not even have a CB or walkie-talkie. If they started the war in California, they would have no way to know what was happening in NYC. The only people they could communicate with would be those they could physically reach out and touch. Number eight, allies. Black men are not military affiliated with any foreign governments. As much as they say they love and support the motherland or launch verbal campaigns against apartheid in South Africa, nobody from Africa is going to ever use a hostile invasion of America to rescue or help the black man. No African nation has ever expressed public outrage at how the black man is treated in America. Black men do not qualify for recognition as a nation because they are dependent upon the USA for all their needs and are not nationally organized, nor have they African names or religions to identify them as a lost tribe worthy of defending. So there it is in black and white. Black men are not qualified or prepared to go to war, and any attempts at such will end in bloodshed and humiliation. The black man who espouses this kind of pointless rhetoric have no consideration for black women and black children or the elders. The black man is not divinely defenseless, but he would be delusional, psychotically so, to think he could win anything but a casket or lengthy jail sentence by employing this method to seek freedom. Additionally, black men tend to decide to believe in or align themselves with the political dogma of strong black men who are now dead. They claim a few ideas or a statement from them and try to build an entire allegiance based on a few parables or slogans. It seems the most enduring slogan, catapulted into popularity by Malcolm X during the 60s, which resurfaces periodically as it has now, is by any means necessary. Black men say that by any means necessary means that they should fight for their freedom and get into no matter what it takes. Let's consider some of the means that might become necessary. One, it could mean that black men must quit their jobs, working the system, abandon all their credit cards, and default on their car notes in order to give full attention to important issues in the struggle, like pooling their resources and energies to form independent businesses, schools, and food distribution systems. Two, it could entail black men to stop going to church and study their own cultural religions, give up the slave master's name, and work daily to figure out how to get along with each other. Three, it might mean going without the latest style of clothing, selling all their jewelry to get cash to finance their projects, or eating only one meal a day to conserve food and expenses. Four, it could mean that the black man have to start taking black women off the street who are living immorally or claiming some of the black babies and youth who have been left in agencies to keep them from being absorbed in cross racial adoption. Five, it could mean going into a room with his neighbors or club members and not coming out until they came to an agreement about what must be done to salvage Black communities and formulate an agenda and assign themselves duties to get the job done. Six, it could also mean that they have to start making their word their bond and doing what they say they are going to do and clean up their own neighborhoods and make repairs where needed. This would include policing their own areas and making them a safe and clean place to live. What is the above six examples are the means necessary to restore value and self sufficiency in African American communities? How many Black men are really willing to use any means necessary to rebuild Black culture and Black pride by sacrificing their individual greed and personal aspirations for the benefit of the Black nation at large? How many Black men are confident enough in themselves to step out on air, decide that the Black God is with them, and use their lives to be to be an example to young Black males of what taking responsibility looks like? And how many Black males are serious and concerned to the point of standing up for what they think is right and try to build something that they don't ask the white man to finance? These are the questions. This is the call. A yay or nay response is expected to be forthcoming. So the next time a black man is found or heard elaborating on what blacks should do to get out of their predicament and to reestablish values in the black family to save the children, ask him to read this chapter, take positive action, or suggest he hush and stop fooling himself. They are the only men on earth who insist on trying to talk themselves into a better condition instead of working for one. The black man annoys a lot of people who identify him by his so called skyrocketing ego. It seems that just about anything he brags he can do that is different from how things are usually done is referred to as ego tripping. He is charged with having an un, undeserving value for himself and is too self centered, thinks he's great, does a lot of unsubstantiated tall talk, and when in this trance, talks like he has the whole wide world in his hands. The dimensions of his ego libido fluctuates from big, bigger to biggest, and his ego is just as spry and sturdy as any other male mammal and stands for his last clutch for life. It is the European male who has always set the clearest example of having the greatest amount of king size ego. What size of an ego did it take for European explorers to travel around the world and decide that wherever they stopped, they had a right to claim the land, rename it, and put the people already residing there under their authority? And what is the depth and breadth of an ego that convinced them that they are solely in charge of distributing information according to their own writings to the rest of the world by claiming that they are the sacred leaders of all civilized standards? And what kind of overblown ego tells them that while they do rank as the least number of people on the earth, that they have the right to claim the supreme being, God, as a member of their sparse race? If anyone has over if anyone has over exaggerated their worth, power, or desires, it is the white man, not the black man. And then these self proclaimed world leaders had the nerve during the conflict between Iraq and Kuwait to rush to Kuwait's side, expressing shock and outrage at Saddam Hussein's savage disrespect for human life in order to gain control of another territory. Saddam was charged with invading Kuwait, plundering their villages, enslaving the men, and raping the women, taking control of their natural resources, and staking claim to the entire area. Saddam was further lambasted for accomplishing all this by brute force, trickery, and sophisticated weaponry. Ironically, Saddam's method exactly is parallel with the war tactics used by the white man when he claimed to have found America and set upon the Indians with a vengeance. It was the same cowardly, self serving egomania that was used by the Dutch, the British, and the French in Africa, Australia, and multiple surrounding islands. There is absolutely no difference at all, and the white man has the nerve to get misty eyed and sentimental when singing the national anthem and experiences great pride at overpowering American soil and building his own civilization. This is the kind of disregard they have for all other forms of human life if it doesn't look like them. Even in territories around the globe where they number the least amount in the population, they are in charge. They are the rulers of any non white peoples in the area. The question is who gave them the right to claim the whole earth as theirs and to be boss over everybody else on it?